He was the international face of post-war Algeria. After years of bloody civil war that would claim over 200,000 lives in the 1990s, the country was crying out for stability. Abdelaziz Bouteflika was elected president in 1999 with the all-important backing of the military. He pledged to put an end to the hostilities by opening dialogue with the Islamist FIS and armed factions.
The majority of the Algerian people in every clan and from every political background is reasonable enough to understand that enough harm has been done to our country and that the time has come at long last for Algeria to reconcile with itself.
Peace was top of the agenda, but the country's economy was prioritized as well. Thanks to soaring oil prices and key trade links with the EU, Algeria's finances prospered. But revenues weren't equally distributed, and in some sectors, poverty deepened to unprecedented levels. Social and political reforms were also lacking, and in 2001 and 2002, Bouteflika crushed uprisings by Algeria's Berber population, drawing severe criticism abroad. Re-elected in April 2004, he called a referendum to adopt a reconciliation charter. There were amnesties and pardons for some of the Islamists involved in the civil war and compensation for the victims. On foreign policy, Bouteflika cast himself as a leader in the Arab world and in Africa. He also opted for close relations with Washington, openly supporting George W. Bush's war on terror. With France, Algeria's former colonial master, relations proved more conflicted.
France carried out very bad policies in Algeria because it thought it had found a vacuum, a playground. It used and abused it.
When French President François Hollande ultimately recognized France's brutality in a speech before the Algerian parliament, Bouteflika's government didn't respond. But it did recognize a positive step when Hollande's successor, Emmanuel Macron, acknowledged France was responsible for acts of torture during Algeria's independence war in the 1950s. A 2008 constitutional amendment allowed Bouteflika to stand for re-election. He won 2 more terms in 2009 and 2014. In response to the Arab Spring protests in 2011, his government lifted the state of emergency that had been in place since 1992. The country's much-vaunted stability appeared intact. Yet despite Bouteflika's efforts, terrorist activity attributed to Algerian extremists continued at the country's borders in the Sahel region, culminating in a bold attack on a major Algerian gas field in January 2013, in which dozens of foreign hostages were killed. In later life, Bouteflika's health deteriorated, and he often traveled to France and Switzerland for medical treatment. His decision to run for a 5th term in 2019 sparked nationwide demonstrations in Algeria. A month later, the pressure proved too much for the country's all-powerful military. Bouteflika resigned after the army's chief of staff declared him unfit to rule.